They said it couldn't be done. Well, buckle up everyone, it's time for a road trip. Welcome to RPG Challenge Runs, and today we ask ourselves, can you beat Final Fantasy 15 using only magic without leveling up, and with all of these other crazy restrictions in place? That's right, no consumables, no warping, no techniques, no optional summons, no Armiger, no weapons or accessories, no food, no DLC, no easy mode, and no glitches, hacks or mods. No chance!
You mad, bro?
As soon as we gain control of our protagonist, Prince Noctis, we unequip all of his weapons as well as all allies' techniques. We can't unequip their weapons or remove them from the party, so we'll just leave them with their starting gear for the rest of the game, which will make them as useless as possible. We give the Nixperience Band to Noctis to prevent us from leveling up, and we're done here. Before we can engage in any combat though, we have a bit of preparation to do. After surveying the local area and stocking up on sweet peppers, more on those in a minute, we venture out into the desert to drain elemental juice. This gives us the perfect opportunity to remind everyone how magic actually works in FF15. Pretty much everyone agrees that magic is terrible in this game. Not only do you have to manually craft every spell you want to use, but they're short range, have bad accuracy, and deal friendly fire damage to yourself and all allies, leading to some nasty burns, shocks and freezes. You're also extremely limited to how many spells you can carry. At the start you can only hold one. We make camp for the first time, gaining us 1 AP, more on that very soon. We're forced to pick a meal, so we stick with the default toast, giving us plus 10 attack, which barely has any impact on the game. This is unskippable, which is why we allowed it in the rules. Oh, photos! Yeah, don't forget to share on social media, guys! Oh, that's so shamelessly fourth wall breaking, it's actually funny. After some pot stirring and idle chatter with Ignis, we're awarded with 20 AP, which we quickly spend on the Powercraft ability, boosting the potency of magical spells by 10. Nice! Normally, leveling up provides huge amounts of AP to purchase lots of skills here, but for this run, farming AP will be a serious grind. After sucking more elemental juices, we craft our very first spell, Thundara, and throw a sweet pepper into the mix to make it a tri-cast, giving it a chance of casting up to 3 times per use. We can use this spell 3 times before it's gone, so that's a total of 9 potential blasts. I'll leave the more complex info on screen now for anyone who's interested. On to the first fight against these level 1 Reaper Tails. Thanks to our great preparation, Thundara can easily one-shot a Scorpion, but then we're left super vulnerable as we wait for the crazy long 30-second cooldown. We just wait around until a second cast finishes them off. Second fight, and we kick things off for massive damage, and craft our next spell, Firer, this time. Alright, let's bunch these guys up first. Wait for it, wait for it. Wait, what? Where did my spell go? It is on cooldown. Yep, enemies can interrupt your casting in this game, which makes things even harder for us. Thankfully, we stall out the fight long enough to wipe them out in the second try. Nice. Oh, hey, a very isolated and suspicious looking rundown barn. Let's run straight in there. What could possibly go wrong? Yep, ganked. Nice one, Gladio. But if you thought that this was a tough fight because of the confined space, well, you ain't seen nothing yet. We just keep phase dodging, which drains our MP, and we soon hit stasis, so we bunny hop around the place in a desperate attempt to stay alive. Thankfully, we fire off our second cast just before we die. Damn, that was close. We're soon told to warp to the windmill, but thankfully we can completely ignore that instruction and just craft a Blizzara to chuck at the next mob.
If you're thinking of stocking up your freezer this week, you may like to know that Tesco were cheaper on 25 frozen products.
We choose to get pushy with Dave, rewarding us with a second magic flask, meaning we can now hold 2 spells at once. Nice! On to the first boss of the run, Bloodhorn. This guy has a huge health pool, deals really high physical damage, and is deceptively fast. We have to keep our eye on him at all times so we don't get wiped, but he still throws us around like a ragdoll. Allies continue to deal chip damage and the lingering burns help secure the fight. It's down after just a couple of minutes. We get dive bombed by a god knows what.
That thing's like half bird, half storm, half airship.
You realize that's 3 halves.
Would explain its size.
Oh wow, the writers of this game deserve a serious pay rise. That stuff's hilarious. Anyway, we take out our first optional hunt, and I'm not sure if our allies are very angry at us for throwing this freezing crap everywhere, or if they're secretly enjoying themselves.
This sounds like you're having fun.
We've now got access to the regalia, and Ignis will automatically drive us anywhere we want to go. Whoa, that is not a safe way to travel, Noctis. Put your damn seatbelt on, man. Bruh. We meet Bestest Boy.
Certainly knows how to find us.
Stock up on sweet peppers, electrocute some innocent wildlife, and attempt the optional Mesmernia hunt. There's only 5 of them, so they don't deal a lot of damage, but the fight drags on for absolutely ages, draining us of almost all of our resources in just a single fight. Now imagine that these things could one-shot us. Yeah, that's exactly what most of this run is going to be like, so stay tuned and prepare for my misery. We shop for items during a long car ride, somehow, and soon arrive at Golden Key. Here we meet this kind-looking gentleman. Oh, he seems so helpful and friendly. What a nice guy. After feeding the world's pickiest starving cat...
Here you go. Caught fresh. What? You don't like fish? Oh, you only like cooked fish. Alright.
We sneak past Big Swoopy Boy for Dino's Garnet Stone and do some morning training with Gladio. Hey, did you know that if you hit the sprint button again just before your stamina runs out, you get a speed boost and a full stamina bar? This means that Noctis can sprint infinitely. If you don't want to toggle the stamina bar on, just look for the moment when Noctis jerks his head upwards suddenly. If you know any other handy tips that people might want to hear about, feel free to drop them in the comments down there. Meanwhile, we're splashing out 32 AP on the road running ability, which will passively grant us AP for sitting in the car at roughly a rate of 1 AP per 1.35 miles. Not ideal, but we can now set a long auto journey and go AFK to cook dinner or something, which we'll need to be doing a lot later in the run. After immolating endangered wildlife, we invest in the magic action ability, and it's time for the most brutal fight yet, hunting these flexor tusks. The pack swarms us and we're quickly overwhelmed and in stasis. Without warning, one of them blindsides us and we're dropped to 0 HP. Thankfully, in FF15, this isn't always the end. The player can either drink a potion, which obviously we're not allowed to do, or get a nice pat on the back from one of our friends to resume the fight. Sadly, the AI are pretty terrible at bringing you back to life. Most of the time, they just leave you for dead. Thankfully, on this occasion, Ignis rescues us, and it's over in just a couple of minutes. Damn, that was tough. And remember, we're still in the first chapter of the game. How on earth are we going to be able to survive anything in the mid or late game? Oh, and that reward is pitiful. We buy the world's cheapest tank of fuel, well, that's like 5% of the cost of some fries in this game, and have another horrific experience dealing with the Magnanias and Mesmernias, whose names I'm probably butchering. We hug this central rock to increase MP restoration and just try to stay alive. Thankfully, it's over after 6 minutes. We're not allowed to take on the next bounty because it only comes out at night. Wait, what? It is night! It's 8 PM, it's dark and the stars out. How much more nighttime-y can it get? Yeah, I'd be pulling that face too. We have a final rest at Golden Key, watch some intense action scenes that make absolutely no sense unless you've watched the movie and the plethora of other FF15 media, and begin to fight through waves of Imperial soldiers on the outskirts of Insomnia. This is a mandatory linear section with tons of enemies who are much beefier than the chaff we've been dealing with so far. We just make sure that we take cover in between magic casts and try our best to avoid the snipers. After being shot through a rock, we have a saddest of sad moment and move on to chapter 2. Ignis performs his catchphrase,
That's it!
What's what?
I've come up with a new recipe.
Can't wait to try it.
we gain a third magic flask from Monica and brew more epic spells. Bruh, you should have added more sweet peppers into the mix to raise the spell's level, dislike unsubscribe. Yes, Captain Hindsight, you're right. Adding more ingredients does raise the potency of the spell and the chance of it hitting multiple times, but I'll admit I was really nervous about the cost of items because Gil is still pretty scarce. After getting ganked by a parrot, we grab our first royal arm, continue dodging enemies, and push through these narrow tunnels in search of the next royal tomb. Here's a great example of how tough fights are going to be in these dungeons. We're against a pack of level 7 goblins and quickly get battered around like a Scottish Mars bar. We're downed within seconds. Our own flames are seriously limiting our movement options and we're out of MP, so we revert to flapping around like a Magikarp waiting for the freaking cooldowns. Come on. Yes, let's go. Now give me that loot. Oh, an Oracle Ascension coin. Well, that's about as useful as a fork in a sugar bowl. We have a horrific experience fighting this Arachne until she gets herself stuck in a burning corner somehow and we finish her off with a tasty tri-cast. That's the second royal arm in the bag. After a bit more AFK AP farming, we're forced to team up with Kor to push through the Norduskian blockade. Man, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly so I don't get another defensive super fanboy raging at me in the comments section. Sadly, the fights here are mandatory since the game won't allow you to open subsequent doors until all enemies are cleared. But thankfully, Kor has a huge health pool and pulls his weight, so we're through in just 4 minutes. But it's not over yet. We're thrown straight into the Loki boss fight. His huge level 22 mech can easily one-shot us, so we have to stay out of sight at all times. We head around the back, dodging targeted rockets and sniper fire, before parking ourselves next to these shipping containers to chill out. Sorry. Chip damage is the name of the game here, as peeking out is way too risky. The fight drags on for so long that the weather changes, but after 6 minutes our flames down the thing. Kor, I think you got something on your face there. Time for chapter 3, with about 6 times the amount of playable area. Wow! We head straight for Cape Kaim's lighthouse at the far south to grab another magic flask from this house. Noctis, that is not how you correctly open a door. Hang on, why did that door have its hinges on the left anyway? Surely the door should open towards the wall, not the middle of the room. Anyway, we complete more side quests for Dino. Bruh, why are you doing side quests when the XP and accessory rewards are useless for the run? Well, because I want to have fun with the game, alright? Fun. Do you remember what that is? You know, what games used to have before loot boxes, FOMO, microtransactions, egregious product placements, NFTs, gacha mechanics, and on-disc DLC? Get out of here, Bruce. No one wants your opinion. Or yours, Matt. Now, where's that damn magic flask? Ah! We've arrived in Lestalem and obtain our 5th magic flask. Nice. I wonder if this game was sponsored in any way. Not sure why, I'm just kind of getting that sponsorship vibe for some reason.
You serious?
We head for the hotel for a rest, obtain yet another magic flask to compensate for this god-awful camera angle, and after a quick walk with Iris, we speak to this old man for yet another magic flask. Nice. We've now built up quite a backlog of side quests, but we decide to push on with the main story for now. This is where the difficulty seriously spikes up, people, so get ready for it. We're at the We're at the Glacial Grotto. Third time's the charm. While most of this area can be skipped, without the ability to warp strike, we're forced to battle this annoying Arachne enemy and her minions in order to cross the narrow ledge. It just takes a jolly good helping of conflagration. Shortly afterwards, there's another ledge with an annoying icy surface which forces you to slide off. Thankfully though, with a bit of bunny hopping towards this rock on the left hand side, we can push past and onto the mini-boss guarding the third royal arm. These mind flayers and their imp chums are an incredibly tough mob. They hit hard and fast, with the mind flayers even having ranged magical attacks that deal massive damage. We're downed within seconds before a mind flayer blindsides us and it's game over. That's our first death of the run, and we're forced to back up to the last save point, which was before we even entered the dungeon. Yep, this game does not allow saving within dungeons, and yep, this will become a massive problem for us a bit later on. Second attempt at the mind flayers, and we keep exploiting their electrical weakness while trying to keep an eye on those imps. We wrestle with the controls as we try to keep dodging and moving while also trying to keep an eye on all enemies at once, which is almost impossible in such a confined area. Before long we get mind sucked and imp lasered, and it's GG. This fight is way too tough for us right now, so there's only one thing for it. We need to grind some more. We start by doing a bit of shopping and selling some loot. Sir, are you okay there? Like, what is he even doing? We do some Cindy side quests for Regalia fuel efficiency upgrades, which will really help out with some AFK AP farming. Fail to obtain Garula meat because magic does not allow us to initiate a fight. Quickly take down the optional Deadeye boss by exploiting the conveniently placed exploding barrels. Unlock chocobo riding, almost get our hand ripped off, and stock up on these beauties, Duskian oranges. Interestingly, most online guides don't include these because they were introduced in a post-launch patch, but because they're not DLC, they're fair game. By throwing a few of these into the mix, we can make quad-cast spells with potencies of 130. Nice! But let's see how they fare against those mind flayers. Here's our setup going in. Our two quadcast Thundaras will be leading the charge, but we do have a backup quadcast Firer and a random tricast for if things drag on. Pokeball at the ready, let's do this. The fight begins and our opening spell procs 3 times out of a possible 4. That's pretty good luck, to be fair. From there we hide behind this rock to avoid the imp's eye lasers and to get a better view of the fight. A mind flayer flanks us though, and we're forced out of position. We kite them to the other side of the arena as our spell knocks one of the mind flayers down to super low health. Again we circle around and try to use the rock for cover as much as possible. We time our third spell quite well to wipe out most of the chaff, but a flan has now been introduced and we still have the other mind flayer at full health. Again we're just stalling for time. Prompto's down, but we don't help him. Instead, we create some distance to throw our 4th Thundara, finishing the fight. Alright, let's go! While we grab this next royal arm for the collection, I should say, this video took over 100 hours of work to put together, so I'd love it if you could click all the things, because it encourages YouTube to recommend the video to more people. Cheers guys, really appreciate the support. We meet this friendly stranger again, and follow him to his car. Apparently he has sweeties. And chapter 4 begins. After a short car ride, we grab the next royal arm and we're up against the Archean Titan. Remember people, no weapons and no warping. After dealing with the Imperial soldiers, we fall down and the trial of Titan begins. If we press the button prompt, then Noctis will pull out his sword to defend himself, so we must ignore the QTE and face the consequences. Thankfully, Gladio saves us, this time. While fleeing, the persistent punching puts us back in danger status, but it seems like the game prevents death here, probably to keep the high intensity going. After some cardio, Gladio holds the thing off while we're prompted to perform a warp. We're stuck in place and can't move. Is this the end of the run? Well, thankfully not. If you wait long enough, Gladio relents and we get thrown onto the next phase anyway. Here we're told to parry Titan's attacks, but again the game won't allow us to die. Thankfully the cutscene soon plays out and the actual fight begins. Trying to find an opening to use magic here is super difficult, but thankfully Imperial soldiers soon join the fight. When the hand crashes down and becomes vulnerable, we can finally throw magic at the thing to deal Wait, what? Did his health bar even move? The game wants us to use our ultimate Armiger ability, but that is off the table as per the rules. We will not have enough spells to take this thing all the way down, so we'll have to find another option. We go to check out the far left side of the arena, and you know how we said the game prevents you from dying in this section? Well, somehow we died anyway. Like, how is that even possible? Second attempt, and we hug our allies so we can be quickly revived whenever we get knocked down. After the fight drags on long enough, we're given this message. Ignis and Prompto will begin to spam Blizzara, providing we can dish out 500 or more damage before the timer runs out. The initial blast doesn't do it, but the lingering damage over time tips it over the edge. The glacial barrage is launched and an epic cutscene plays in which Noctis slices the thing's arm clean off. That's our first Astral in the bag. Job done. Time for Chapter 5, Dark Clouds. Oh, sounds ominous. After chatting to a floating dog, we're asked to look for Rammer's 3 runestones and we do not have the regalia. We grab the extra powercraft for plus 30 magic potency, which does not stack with the plus 10, but it allows us to easily craft magics with over 130 potency with very little effort. Nice. With the help of some chocobos, we quickly grab the first 2 runestones with no combat required and take part in a very risky photo shoot. Oh, get away from us! And now let's discuss the first major challenge of the run, Phosha Hollow. Oh my god, serious face time. This is an extremely narrow and linear cave section with tons of mandatory fights. On the first attempt we go in blind to see what we're up against, a reminder that FF15 does not allow you to save the game mid-dungeon, so a death here means having to restart the entire dungeon, and it's a big one. This first Imps fight is mandatory because we can't interact with the small hole at the end until we're out of combat, meaning all Imps must be defeated before we can crawl through to the next section. Second fight, and things initially seem simple until these thunder bombs drop in. Not only do they have a huge health pool and no weakness, but they absorb electricity to heal themselves, and we have no way of retreating out of the fight. We're hit down while casting a fire spell, and Ignis's terrible AI ignores us, so we are dead. Ouch. Second attempt, and again we make it to the second mob. Within seconds the thunder bombs have returned. We try to hold back, but we get flanked, lasered, burned, bashed, slashed, you name it. We try cowering behind this boulder for faster MP regeneration, but we get sprayed by whatever the heck this is, and as usual no one comes to the rescue, so we're dead again. After a few more failed attempts, we discover that you can actually skip the second encounter. I feel like a total idiot. I thought this was one of those narrow crevices that you have to interact with, but no, you can just run on through. The second mandatory fight actually comes just after grabbing the magic flask, as soon as you interact with this narrow gap, in which we get swarmed by more than a dozen imps. They completely overwhelm us. Dead again. Our low health pool, as well as not being able to heal up mid-dungeon, is making things really difficult. Thankfully though, we discover a little trick. If we wipe out a few of the imps, then retreat back to this choke point, we're outside the aggro circle of the imps and all other mobs, and therefore we are no longer in combat. This means that we're never left vulnerable while waiting for the cooldown timer. This is enough to wipe out the imps and push on to what I would describe as the second half of the dungeon. This part takes place in one large cavern, with Prompto stolen from us. Thankfully, if you go to this exact spot, it's just outside the aggro circle, and therefore Prompto rescues himself. Haha! As for the enemies, well, it's another mandatory fight. We can't crawl under the next opening until all enemies have been defeated. There are imps, thunderbombs, mind flayers, hobgoblins, you name it. Needless to say, we get absolutely obliterated. Okay, let's just go far enough to grab the magic flask and then back out to do more side content. The world is engulfed with darkness and lightning, on the brink of despair, so we spend time photographing a cute chocobo. I think we have our priorities right.
Oh man, that was my first time flying on a ship like that.
One more item to cross off the bucket list.
Wait, what? We weren't on a ship. We were in the forest photographing a chocobo. Weird. After causing a traffic jam, we tried to get a morbidly obese giant yellow chicken off of a cat girl's back. Oh god, I love JRPGs. It's all so ridiculous. And we keep farming AP by riding on the back of Chonkobo. Yeah, my wife chose the name.
Ingredients are rather different beasts. The blade should give you paws. A cat's paw with the left while you slice with the right.
I know that. Don't make me claw your throat out.
Wow, that really killed the vibe. Here's our setup going into Fosha Hollow once again. We've grabbed some nodes that reduce our MP consumption while dodging, which are helpful, and grabbed the node that boosts max HP based on your level. We're stuck at level 1, so we only gain like 2 HP, but every little helps. And we've focused on an Ice Thunder loadout since the myriad imps are resistant to fire. Let's go. Only seconds after entering, we noticed something rather interesting. The first mob of imps doesn't spawn, allowing us to progress with one less mandatory fight. It turns out that the reason for this is that many of these scripted fights in the dungeon are one-off events, so if you complete the fight and back out of the dungeon, the mob will not respawn. Clearly, grabbing that magic flask and retreating earlier has actually improved our odds. Therefore, our next plan is to beat the second mandatory fight, squeeze through the gap, and then retreat out. Sadly, yep, the game prevents us from doing this. Squeezing through this second gap is the point of no return. Thankfully, we're able to blast our way through the large room of enemies and push onto the boss of the dungeon. FYI, this thing will attack you no matter which dialogue option you pick. It's resistant to fire and slightly weak to ice damage, but it has a huge presence on the battlefield, lots of HP, and the ability to turn Noctis and his allies into toads. Two good things to mention though are that it attacks relatively infrequently, and you can use the rocks around the arena to temporarily block the thing. It's a super long fight, yet it seems like everything is going well until... wow, a full team wipe, yikes! We did a lot more attempts trying to get back there. One thing we did manage to do was beat the second mandatory fight, but back out of the dungeon before going through the one-way narrow gap. So, after some froggy business and throwing explosives at our friend, we're back at Fosha Hollow. Again, here's our setup for those who are interested. Reaching the boss was, as always, a huge challenge, but once we reach her, we deliberately play like an absolute coward. We do not want to be one-shot by whatever the hell that thing was earlier, so keeping our distance is essential. After she reaches about a third HP, we dodge her lunge and throw a high-potency Blizzara, which luckily procs the maximum of 4 times, finishing her off. Job done. This was the first time I was super proud of something in this run, so I'm going to upload the regular speed unedited footage onto Patreon, as well as a few other full-length dungeons and bosses from this run. Thanks to all these people for supporting the channel, by the way. I really appreciate all of you. Time to infiltrate an Imperial base to get our bloody car back. Sadly, we can't take advantage of the stealth insta-kill mechanic because it involves warping, which is banned by the rules. Thankfully, the game lets us dispatch the enemies in the usual fashion, but they're quite tough, especially when there's multiple of them. We soon find the regalia, but we can't just drive it out of here. Oh no, that would be way too simple. Instead, we first have to deal with this MAX Maniple mech, which is pretty much a beefier reskin of the Loki boss from Chapter 2. Again, we're forced to play like a coward and get knocked down repeatedly. A good strategy is to use this giant tank as a shield, making us immune to its missile barrages. We still have to stay on our toes though, because it can launch airstrikes at us from above. Shortly afterwards, we're instructed to use the Imperial turrets to blow up energy tanks, which obviously we're not allowed to do in this run. Instead, we get absolutely swarmed. I mean, look at this. There's dozens of enemies in all directions, including swordsmen, battery soldiers, snipers. It just feels completely impossible. Our teammates are down and we soon follow suit. Second attempt, dead again. Third attempt, and this time we take advantage of a single open doorway at the far corner of the area to exit the combat circle. Just like in Fosha Hollow, this allows us to revive teammates, automatically heal up a bit, wait for magic cooldowns, and just take a breather. The strategy is to go in, get a couple of picks, and then head out and wait for a bit. It's a slow process, but after 10 minutes we've cleared the area and get told to destroy the Magitech generator, which we're more than happy to do, so we can get the hell out of here. Whew, it feels so good to be in the AP machine. Smell that lovely fresh air. After handing in more side quests, we sit through a super emotional cutscene to mourn the death of a character so forgettable that Square Enix literally had to patch in flashbacks of who the guy even was. And it's time for Chapter 6. We give Iris a lift, who seems happy enough, fetch more dog tags for Dave, who has the most generic name in any Final Fantasy game, pick flowers with Gladio, install more car upgrades, rescue a dying chocobo by immolating its corpse, and keep farming AP while AFK in the car. I turned the screen off while I went to cook dinner, and when I came back I saw this. A boot to the face! I have so many questions about what happened leading up to that point. We photograph a tomb before trying to loot the thing, and now it's time for the next main story segment. We're told to trail this Caligo guy while not being spotted. The problem? Well, we can't take down any of the guards because that would require a physical warp strike, which breaks 2 rules at once. And magic is not an option because it would attract too much attention. Here, you're supposed to point warp to avoid detection, which we're not allowed to do, while continuing on foot instantly gets us spotted. Is this the end of the run? Thankfully not. We find a small opening next to the shipping container which gets us behind the guard, but how the hell are we supposed to get through this gate without being spotted by him? Again, we're supposed to point warp, but that isn't an option. We look around frantically trying to find any way forward. Oh, sod it, let's just go for it. Oh, damn it. Strangely enough, because we've made it through the gate, the game respawns us here, at the place we would have ended up if we had done a point warp. Nice! That's cut off a decent chunk. We're at the next choke point, but 2 guards are watching it this time. Surely this must be impossible now. These stairs are fake and useless, but thankfully we can just slip past the guard's view and subdue the lone Caligo. But we're not out of the woods just yet. For the first time in the entire game, we are alone and up against an entire army. We try meeting up with our friends, but we're just getting battered. How on earth are we supposed to make it through here? Well, we hug the left side and keep dodging. Despite being downed, we crawl onwards and reset as soon as we're out of the combat area. Now we're up against another one of these mechs alongside Prompto and Gladio, but within seconds things are not looking good. Damn, we're dead. Next attempt. Nah, dead again. 9 attempts later and we finally have this run. We hug the huge tank thing on the right hand side and we watch out for the targeting lasers that come before the orbital strikes. It's super tense, almost like playing a horror game where you get insta-killed if you get found. Thankfully it's down in 4 minutes, but it has one last surprise for us. Yeah, probably should have seen that one coming. But we're not done yet. Prepare yourselves, people, for the most difficult boss in the entire run.
Hey, pretty boy. Let's see what you can do.
Aranea Highwind is a super fast and agile boss with quick, relentless attacks, a huge health pool, and she can fly around high up in the air and dive bomb you whenever she likes, meaning there is no hiding from her. This fight couldn't get any more difficult, right? Wrong. Waves of enemies are constantly spawning infinitely in groups of 4 who can shoot at us from a distance. Aranea almost never stops moving, meaning there are very few opportunities to actually throw magic at her. Some of her attacks also seem to be undodgeable. Phasing through all the gunfire is draining our MP fast, and even if we kill them off, a new wave of 4 spawns approximately every 60 seconds. Our first run was pretty good. We got her to about half health before being repeatedly dive bombed. We buy another max HP upgrade from the Ascension tree, but again it's level based, so our health only goes up by 4, which, let's be honest, probably won't ever make a difference, but hey ho. After that, well, check this out. I'll be honest, I seriously considered giving up here. Not just because the boss seems impossible, but because I thought to myself, if this is a mid-game boss, what on earth is fighting the late-game bosses going to be like? But after the hell that was Fosha Hollow, we have to do this. We have to see how far we can get. Whew. Okay, let's go. We may have failed this fight dozens of times, but we learned a lot from going through all that. Here is how you beat Aranea Highwind with only magic. Start by throwing a spell and then sprint to the right hand side of the arena, making sure to be directly underneath this section of the gangway when she does her initial leap. This causes her to crash onto the metal, which gives way and causes her to stagger a bit, buying us a bit of time. We now hug this blue staircase ladder thingy beside the giant tank, as it will sometimes cause her to get confused and try attacking you through it instead of going round. We keep using fire spells because the flames can stunlock her for a few seconds, buying time for the cooldown to partially refresh. The soldiers are in, but their spawn point is far from here, so they take a long time to get to us. We only attack the soldiers if and when it is completely safe to do so. We try to keep at least 1 or 2 of the soldiers alive, as this prevents the game from spawning another wave until the entire mob is dead. We create space and try taking advantage of the awkward geometry of this metal grate on the floor, but the soldiers flank us to shoot us down. Thankfully, Aranea misses us, accidentally killing one of her own soldiers instead, and Prompto gives us a reviving pat on the back. From there, it's back to the blue ladder. The awkward angle causes Aranea to get stuck behind this tower, which is an excellent time for another fire spell. She didn't get stunlocked this time, sadly, but it's enough for her to upgrade her weapon and push on to phase 2. Yep, she's still at half health. Her slams deal massive damage now, and she's much more vicious. Thankfully, she doesn't seem to be targeting Noctis very much, and her AI seems to be a bit, disorientated, for lack of a better word. Not that I'm complaining. She's super low and stun-locked in the flames, so she launches herself to safety, only to slam right back down into the flames. Yep, she's stupid, she's dead.
We should play again sometime, pretty boy.
Whew. Ho 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 ho. Okay, I'm calling it. That is definitely one of the hardest bosses we've ever done on RPG challenge runs. Iris temporarily joins the party, but we can't unequip any of her stuff, so we just leave her as is. She's even weaker than we are. We try fighting the optional Bandersnatch boss in the Malmalum Thicket, but we get absolutely destroyed. It's not even close, and it's not worth grinding for, so I think we'll pass on that one. Time for Cape Kayam, and look at that view.
Want to get a closer look?
At what?
Yo mama. We join Cindy for a slow walk up the hill. And for anyone wanting to try this run for themselves, if you forgot to grab Jared's magic flask before he died, then you can grab it here from his grave. There's another point of no return warning, so it's probably wise to farm for a bit before we continue. These campsites are super close together, so hopping between them yields rapid AP generation. Well, rapid for this run anyway. We can use a chocobo or use the return to car feature with a well placed regalia to earn about 6 AP every 1 to 2 minutes. Nice! We grab another magic flask from the Rocker Ravator and have an absolutely thrilling conversation with Prompto.
So, what you doing?
Nothing much. Just chilling.
Cool.
After a lot of AP farming, we're able to buy super powercraft, so our spells get plus 50 potency instead of plus 30. We have the potential to craft magic with potencies over 200 now, assuming we have the cash to burn through ingredients. Using 17 Duskane oranges to craft level 99 quadcast magics of potency 166 seems to be a nice compromise, but we can throw a little bit of other elemental energies in to raise the potency even further. More camping, more notes that improve our ability to dodge, Gladio leaves the party and it's time for chapter 7. We're very limited to where we can go in this chapter, made worse by this Imperial roadblock forcing us to travel long distances by foot. Shanks's pony, as my nana always said. After a quick trek through the swamp with everyone's second favourite shady guy, winner goes to the Resident Evil 4 merchant of course, Aranea joins the party, well, a heavily nerfed version of her anyway, and we wait for nightfall in order to enter Stairlift Grove. Oh my god. Just me talking about this place is giving me horrifying flashbacks. You remember Forsha Hollow, right? Well, meet its bigger, badder brother. We skip all optional fights, and this first mandatory fight can actually be skipped if you quickly dash to the door before the Reaper's spawning animation finishes playing out. There's a magic flask on the floor here, followed by a narrow ledge to advance, but we can only interact with either of them after we defeat this mob. Creme brulees are particularly problematic because we soon discover they absorb all fire and electric damage, meaning ice is our only option. Even then, they're really tanky and aggressive. There's stuff coming at us from all sides, so we're soon dead. We did manage to defeat them on the second attempt, so we grab the magic flask and start shimmying. The next problem is that Noctis can't jump over this tiny ledge, meaning we're forced to go all the way around. This leads us into a mandatory Iron Giant boss fight with extra creme brulees everywhere for even more fun. We go to rescue Ignis and yep, maybe that wasn't a very good idea. We reload our last save file, which was outside the dungeon, since again you cannot save the game within a dungeon, and things are going well until the Iron Giant is like nope, and it's GG. Ah man, where's Tarkus when you need him? Third attempt, and we try to keep a lot of distance from the boss while also keeping the creme brulees in sight. We discover that standing near this fallen pillar thing is an excellent idea, since the giant treats it like a wall and so never walks over it. This gives us the edge we need. Prompto is dead, but a final Blizzara seals the deal. In hindsight, we should have retreated out of the dungeon to save the game here, but instead we push on and clear the path to the dungeon's main boss. It involves Noctis being locked into tight rooms against small mobs of enemies, but thankfully it's nothing we can't handle. The dungeon's main boss is Quetzalcoatl. No, not that one. It's level 32, can fly, and as we soon discover, has a powerful AoE electric attack that can one-shot anyone except Aranea. Game over. That's probably over an hour of progress lost. Noctis, do you think this run is even possible? Nah, me neither. I quit out, uninstalled the game, and started writing the script for the video. I was ready to be like, sorry guys, this was a fail, but I'm still proud that we made it so far. But a week later, I woke up one morning and thought, you know what? I'm just doing the viewers a disservice here. It is possible, it's just bloody difficult and extremely grindy. I can't just palm that off onto someone else to finish what I started. We go big or we go home. If it's not possible, we bloody well make it possible. That's what we do here at RPG Challenge Runs. So let's get this game re-downloaded, grab the backup save file, and put our Black Mage hat back on and get on with it. We grab the magic flask back out and save the game. We check to make sure the shimmy ledge thing isn't one way like what happened back in Fosha Hollow, which it's not. That's good. We use the same fallen pillar block strategy to wipe out the Iron Giant, back out and save the game. Next time we enter Stalit Grotto, it'll be almost a straight path to the Quetzalcoatl boss, so we need to prepare. We're stuck in the Vesper Pool area, but we can camp with Aranea, which is a nice little game mechanic that I bet most people probably missed. The Merlwood contains the only other campsite available to us, so we can hop between them to farm AP, but this is extremely slow. It could take weeks to farm a significant amount of AP at this rate, and we have to stick to our upload schedule of one challenge run per month, so we don't have time to be messing around. We're almost at the boss door and... wait, where are our teammates? They got stuck again? Yep, the awkward geometry of this dungeon means that you have to gradually pull them around every corner or else they get left behind. After about 10 minutes, we're ready for Quetzalcoatl again. Here's our setup going in for those who are interested. Let's win this! We stay close when he's flying to disorientate him, but he's extremely aggressive when on the ground, so that is when we need to give him space. For example, yep, not enough space. Cheers, Ignis. You'll notice we're using high potency ice magics as it deals 20% extra damage to this boss. Wow, I'm really surprised that blast didn't kill us. We spin the boss, create distance, lure the thing away from our allies, and it seems to go AFK for a while. Are you okay there, amigo? Prompto's also in danger, but our next quad cast deals massive damage. It actually procced 5 times instead of 4 there. I have no idea how. Things get nail-bitingly close and we're given the option to use a summon to finish the thing off, which is obviously against the rules, so we keep fighting normally. After just another minute, it falls in defeat. Job done. And this is the closest we can get to teabagging in this game. We grab the mithril and head back above ground. I have never been so happy to see a dark, dank, rainy swamp in my life. We lose Aranea now that we're in Chapter 8, but that's okay because after clearing out some imps in a power plant alongside, quote, Hunter, who is definitely not Gladio, our friend returns. Now, I have a question for you, dear viewer. Listen to this NPC's voice.
Crisp baked bread fresh out of the oven. So, ready to get some bread in you? Thank you.
Do you think it matches up with this guy?
Can't top the aroma of bread being baked.
Yeah, me neither. We sit through a quick ad break, catch another fish the size of a human male, sow some seeds in certainly soft soil, continue to farm AP while AFK driving, grab some enhanced headlights so we can drive at night without getting ganked by demons, photograph some fluffy boys, grab a missable magic flask from Core, and set sail, leaving the fun open world behind us. From Chapter 9 onwards, Final Fantasy XV becomes extremely linear and story focused, for better or for worse. The game's development was very rushed, which likely caused this, but post-release patches did help to smooth things out a bit. What do you think about FF15's late game? Are you a fan of it, or do you wish that the game was all open world? I'd like to read your thoughts in the comments section. I think we had some good discussions going on last time. One thing I'm sure everyone agrees with is that Altissia is beautiful, especially for a game released in 2016, though admittedly the proportions seem a bit off, so it feels like you're on a ride at Disneyland. Hey, look here. One yacht, one canoe, right? Boom! Now there's a second yacht, apparently. We can interact with Umbra at rest points to recall memories, i.e. travel back in time and access the open world area again, but I'm not sure how exactly we're able to hand in side quests that we complete within Altissia back to people in the open world, because canonically Noctis took a one-way trip. Best not to think about it too much. After acing the first secretary's meeting, we're on a gondola heading straight for Leviathan. Wait, we didn't prepare for this! After a quick speech from Luna Freya, the Hydrian is summoned and we rush forward, dodging all the optional mobs along the way. Just like with Titan, we deliberately fail all QTEs, but it's just chip damage and therefore meaningless. When chatting with Leviathan, we choose to request rather than demand her power. Demanding does give an AP boost, but makes Leviathan stronger, which obviously we don't want. Here we go, the trial of Leviathan. You're supposed to beat this fight by warping to the various buildings that are floating all around the giant battlefield, as well as warp striking Leviathan directly, which obviously we can't do. We are stuck on the starting platform with no allies to revive us if we take a hit, and Leviathan is out of range of our magics. This is the most vulnerable we have been so far. We try to time the second cast for when Leviathan rushes us, but we get knocked down into the water. The game does auto-revive us, which is nice, but we can't warp anywhere, so we're trapped down here. It's basically a mercy kill from Leviathan at this point. Second attempt, and it's clear that timing these magic spells perfectly is vital to winning the fight. Our first spell does pitiful damage. Then we dodge another charge and some blasts of water before we get downed by a flank. Thankfully though, we're still on the platform this time and the game auto-revives us after a short while. We ready up a firer for spell number 3. Come on, his health bar hasn't even moved yet. A slow entry. Nice! It's enough for the cutscene to trigger and we're on to phase 2. During this phase, we're forced to fly around the battlefield shooting magical sword beams. This section is mandatory and we are technically using magic, so I'm not counting this as a run fail, providing we do not use any warp strikes, which we don't really need to. Noctis gets a huge boost to his max HP here, and honestly it was just really fun to feel badass for a few minutes instead of a coward who spends half the run hiding behind rocks and tanks. We break off its fins, drop its HP to 0, get protected by Titan and Luna, and we're on to Chapter 10, The Heart of a King. We walk around the train until it arrives into the station, capture some chicklings, appreciate some gorgeous graphics, and travel into the past to see if Noctis has learned how to open a door yet. Nope, that's not how you do it. You have to push the side that's away from the hinges. Try again. Oh. This guy needs more practice. We somehow hand a photograph that we took in the future to a guy in a memory of the past.
You're just not thinking fourth dimensionally.
Play a game of Spot the Difference, grab another magic flask that has now washed up on the shores of Golden Key, and try that door again. No! Oh, this is making me angry now. We push on with the story alongside Blind Ignis, shut down Prompto,
Took more photos today. You want to see?
No.
And find a cool little mechanic that the devs threw in. See this water we're standing on? It's completely turned into ice due to our Blizzara magic, but after the battle's over, it turns back into water. I thought that was kind of cool. In response to Gladio's question, we choose the Show Resolve option, boosting our vitality by 50%, which is basically defense. The only other option would have boosted our strength instead, which is obviously useless to us. Time for the Marlborough boss fight. Here's our setup going in. The Ascension grids are looking pretty good now, especially the magic tab, which is almost maxed out. Let's go. The fight begins and we concentrate on exploiting its fire weakness, but Gladio is almost instantly dead. This thing is very powerful and has lots of little guys joining it in the arena. Its bad breath skill deals huge amounts of AoE damage as well as, of course, various negative status ailments. Both of our other allies are quickly killed off, so we have to do the second half of the fight ourselves. Soon enough it's down to 0 HP, but it doesn't die, instead automatically recovering about 1/5 of its health. We try again and yep, same thing. We're told to flee and regroup, which we do, but that didn't do anything. The boss just resets to full HP. Our allies are dead and we're close behind. Second attempt, dead again. Okay, after a quick Google search, it seems like a lot of people became equally frustrated with the wording of what the game asks you to do here. When it tells you to flee, it actually means go to the red arrow in the battle arena, but contrary to popular belief, Ignis does not have to be alive because everyone gets automatically resurrected, and a few seconds later the cutscene plays out. One more fire magic spell and it's out of there. Job done. That's another royal arm for the collection. Chapter 11, In the Dark. As soon as the chapter begins, we find ourselves under siege from an entire Imperial platoon. We have to defeat them all before the train's health bar depletes all the way down, and we only have Prompto to back us up. I'm really worried about our damage output here due to the long magic cooldowns, but we seem to be managing okay. Soon enough though, they roll out an Imperial tank, which the game says we have to point warp to or else it's game over. We try doing nothing, but it blows up the train within seconds. Second attempt and we try to reach the tank without using the warp, but there's a metal fence blocking it and we cannot pass, nor can we throw magics through it. It seems like warping to this tank is a mandatory, unskippable requirement to advance the story, confirmed by the cutscene that plays out after you do it. As always, I'll let you decide if you think we filled the run or not, but personally I'm going to continue because it was a compulsory action required to advance, and therefore I don't think we should be penalised for it. A similar thing happens in the next section, in which you're forced to warp between some ships in order to take down 4 assault crafts. Again, there's no way to physically reach each vehicle without warping, so providing we stick to magic only and don't actually warp strike any enemies, I'd say we can bend the no warping rule for now. It's still a horrifically difficult section of the game though, because there's obviously a time limit and the game forces you into very confined areas with tons of enemies and very poor visibility. After 2 aircraft are destroyed, we just about survive the 3rd, but then this happens. Yep, our magic spell vanishes into thin air. I think this is a bad glitch caused by the fact that we're aboard a moving vehicle, but it causes us to run out of time and the train is destroyed. Second attempt and we have a really rough time aboard the 3rd aircraft. We try to use the turret for cover, but as soon as we throw out our next spell, we get battered. Third attempt, we try switching up the order and even try landing on the back of some aircraft instead of the sides, but this leaves us super vulnerable. Another death. Finally, we have this run. We leave Prompto to deal with the guys on the train while we quickly get to work. Speed is the name of the game here, but we also need good luck to ensure each magic spell A doesn't glitch out, and B is strong enough to one-shot a shock trooper, which is mostly down to RNG. We use the central ship while waiting for cooldowns, and before long we're back at the train and knocked out for our troubles. And now, Chapter 12. End of Days. We're alone, stuck on the roof of the moving train and painfully low on spells with no way to craft any more. We're told to make our way to the front car, but there's an invisible wall blocking us from doing so. We just have to stall it out long enough for the train to pass through the tunnel, triggering the cutscene in which Leviathan comes to our rescue. After a quick chat to Biggs and Wedge, we stock up on elemental energy, save the game, and now seems like a good time to head back to the past for more grinding. Welcome to the exciting life of an RPG challenge runner. Yep, life couldn't get any more exciting. We try to stock up on elemental energy when the game lets us actually interact with the deposits, and it's time for another drive. A nice relaxing AP farm with absolutely nothing unusual going on. Absolutely nothing unusual. I'm curious how many of you have spotted it yet. Yep, our driver is missing for some reason. Where the hell is Ignis? We exit and re-enter the car, but again we're being driven around by a ghost. Okay, let's try manual mode with Noctis in the driving seat. Yep, Ignis is still missing. What's going on here? Ignis is still here in the party. He even takes damage and talks, so he's just invisible, I suppose. We refuel the regalia and, yep, he's back. That was a really weird bug. More kind deeds, another magic potency buff, and it would be nice to grab this bonus spell node, but I'm not sure how much more AP farming I can actually take. Oh, fine, I'll do it. We encounter yet another bug in which the block prompt gets stuck on our screen, grab the bonus spell node. No way are we grinding for 999 AP for that second one. and let's check out the kind of stuff we can craft now. Yep, if we go all in, we can potentially make level 99 quadcast times 4 400 potency spells.
Oh my god!
We grab another royal arm from the Rocket Ravator for completion's sake.
Wow! This is like a real-life RPG.
Bruh.
Use extremely rare enemy materials to craft some quintcast spells. Grab yet another royal arm from the Merlewood. Play red light, green light with a chocobo that we can barely see. And after about 11 hours, it's back to the main story. We're using magics with randomized elements in order to maximize the potencies. Let's push on. The train grinds to a halt and we're forced to wipe out these demons. The problem is that the level gap is massive now, so even the slightest scratch will one-shot us. We also don't have Promptor, which is one less body for the enemies to be distracted by. It's a very small and narrow arena, and there are more pats on the back than the average Oscars ceremony. We somehow wipe out the Wraith, only for another to spawn in, and we're soon dead again. On the second attempt, we make it a bit further, only for this level 34 Deathclaw boss to spawn in and insta-kill us. Ugh. The third attempt thankfully goes much better. The trick is to hide behind this chunk of ice at the far back right of the arena, only popping out to deal damage. The Deathclaw never approaches us, so we just repeat the process until it's dead. Nice. After more chilly times on the train, it's clear that Noctis isn't very happy with us putting him through this level of hell.
Stop! Stop!
Nevertheless, we gain Shiva's blessing and begin chapter 13, Redemption. Look anywhere online and people will tell you that this was their most hated chapter in the entire game, even after all of the patches. We escape the demon-infested train in the Regalia before it gets shot at and destroyed. Aww. That was way more depressing than any of the actual character deaths so far. We decide to continue on with Noctis, ignoring the easy path from the post-release patch. For this chapter, we're forced to use the Ring of Lucii, which has several different magical spells. First up is Death, which very slowly lowers a target's HP and then causes, well, death after a certain amount of sucking, which also heals us up a bit. Most of this chapter can be played out exactly the same as a regular playthrough, just with significantly less damage and max HP. It's nice that there are now rest points scattered throughout this extremely linear chapter. Our second spell is Holy, which automatically triggers upon dodging enemy attacks, and last up is Alterna, a powerful magic with a long cast time that requires a full MP bar, but it can one-shot insta-kill all enemies within a given radius, including bosses. We continue through the annoying stealth section just like any normal playthrough, bump into Promptor, okay. One-shot Alterna the mini-boss, get tricked by another fake Promptor, keep upgrading our keycard, and we're eventually knocked down into the depths. After another sad moment mourning a character that we met once, we grab the final royal arm, Sword of the Father, which obviously we can't use right now as it is a weapon. Instead, we just keep using magic with the help of the ring. There's a nasty Forest boss here who can insta-kill you, but it's easy to dodge while you wait for the lift/elevator to come down. After another rest, we save the game, and oh my god, we've been stuck in this chapter for hours. After even more fighting and upgrading our security clearance, we get trapped in an electrified corridor and the walls are closing in, but thankfully we get rescued, meet up with Promptor, and the gang is all back together. We now have access to all of our old abilities and magics. There's a fair argument that we shouldn't use the Ring of Lucii anymore, instead relying on our own spells, but it's kind of a grey area. So how about this? We try to use only our regular magic spells, but failing that, we will use the magic spells from the ring. I think that's the fairest way to do it. After Promptor shows us his best photo ever, we craft some top tier powerful spells and head on into the Ravus boss fight. Hey, remember that ridiculously overpowered Deathclaw who was one-shotting us with ease? Well, that thing was level 34, while Ravus here is level 44. Needless to say, we're barely scratching him. It's such a slow fight, and trying to rescue Ignis here results in our first death. On our second try, all 3 teammates get wiped within seconds and we've barely taken 10% of his health off him. Soon afterwards he starts summoning dark magic spells, and even with our finger constantly holding down the dodge button, we're dead again. Some of his attacks are just flat out undodgeable and there's nothing he can do about it. The only way we're ever going to be able to beat this guy is with magic from the Ring of Lucii. We wait for full MP and a window of opportunity. First alternate, failed to connect. Remember, it's only a percentage chance, not a guaranteed insta-kill. Allies are falling, but thankfully the next cast seals the deal. Now we're back with Solo Noctis and have to reach this hangar gate before it closes, but we clip the edge of a fence and get wiped. Second attempt and it's nail-bitingly close. Get out the way, you big brute! Whew! Thank goodness. Such an overwhelming sense of relief. We reach the crystal, struggle to hear what Arden is saying over the volume of the background music.
Only wants the crystal, and the king are no more. I know.
And wake up in a cell 10 years later for reasons that are never really explained. Getting serious Dark Souls flashbacks here. Is someone going to drop a key down for us? Time for the final chapter of the game, Homecoming. Golden Key is looking a bit worse for wear, so we just dodge all the enemies and push on forward. We have a long way to go, but after a cheeky detour, we're picked up by Talcott and taken to Hammerhead. Oh wow, he still has the Cactuar statues from a side quest we completed earlier. That's a nice little touch.
The final battle will commence once you leave Hammerhead. Be sure to spare no preparation.
Well, there's no way we can prepare, so let's go. We dodge all enemies with the exception of this one mob in the underground walkway that we're forced to fight in order to interact with the button to unlock the next door. Attempt 1 ends badly. Attempt 2, same thing. There's just so many of them. Attempt 3 goes a little bit better, but still, nap. Attempt 4, and the strategy here is to stay mobile. Keep jumping and keep weaving in between the pillars. Basically, you want to make the enemy AI tracking as confused as possible. Somehow, we finally defeat the mob and push on through. We grab the final rest point of the game, make short work of the Behemoth King because he's kinda slow and predictable, and head on into the Citadel. There's a mandatory Ifrit boss fight here, but in phase 1 he's super slow and weak to ice, so we just keep our distance from him and dodge through his AoE fire blasts. We do get downed a couple of times, but our AI teammates seem to be getting better at actually reviving us, which is nice. Before long, we're onto his much more powerful phase 2. His damage is insane in this phase, and he's much more agile than pretty much any enemy in the game so far. We can use the bridge's geometry to temporarily get him stuck or disorientated, but he easily frees himself in mere seconds. We're dead in just a couple of minutes. We try magic from the Ring of Lucii again, but Alterna just keeps failing to connect. Come on, RN Jesus, come on. Yes! Okay, the cutscene triggers and the guy finally learns to chill out. We grab another max HP node and it's time to face the final boss, Arden. He wipes out our friends, but rather than checking on them, we just run off and leave them to die. Here's our setup going into the final boss fight. We're stocked full of high potency quadcasts and our ascension grid is pretty much the best we can make it. And yes, there's a war point here, but again it's mandatory to trigger the cutscene and start the battle. Let's go. The fight begins and we immediately try to put some distance between us. Well, that was fun. On the second attempt, we stay relatively close to him, baiting him into the fire as he constantly dashes around the place. We do run out of MP at one point, but crouching near the parked vehicles helps out a lot. Before long, he's doing all this dark magic crap, and we've dealt enough damage for him to jump us and begin phase 2. This is another super flashy mandatory sequence, very similar to phase 2 of the Leviathan fight from earlier. Again, we're firing endless streams of magical sword beams and resisting the temptation to perform a warp strike. It's easy to defend and dodge, plus we have a massive health bar and we are constantly regenerating HP and max HP. Needless to say, after only a few minutes we hit the QTEs and Noctis launches a barrage of royal arms at Arden, finishing him off. Not content with that, Noctis sacrifices himself to also defeat Arden in the afterlife. Can you beat Final Fantasy 15 at level 1 using only magic with all of these other restrictions in place? Well, surprisingly, yes. There's an argument that using the Ring of Lucii in the Ravis or the Phase 2 Ifrit fights was bending the no weapons rule, or that there was some mandatory warping in Chapter 11, but I think we're just splitting hairs at that point. I'm really proud of this run. It was ridiculously difficult, insanely grindy, but super fun. I had a blast and I hope you did too. If for some reason you're not sick of the sound of my voice yet, you can check out our pacifist run of FF13, in which we tried to beat the entire game without dealing any damage, or our no magic no shop run of FF12, which was a lot harder than expected. But as always, let me know what games you want to see us do next. Alright, look after yourselves. See you later, everyone. Cheers. So, after the run was over, I messaged my wife. That's it! What is? I've come up with a new recipe! She was, yeah, she didn't find that very amusing.
Senpai, you should like and subscribe.